I wanted the house. I wanted the detached house. I wanted the pool in the backyard. I wasn't looking for a mansion. I just wanted what my mom and dad gave me and my brother growing up. That's what I wanted for my family. And in pursuit of that, then you start to uncover some pretty radical, life-changing opportunities. Almost ad hoc, meandering through the next job opportunity, hoping something works out, looking for a promotion, looking for a new opportunity every, 3 to 5 years, almost like as opposed to letting life just happen to me, I was going to happen to life. Like CEOs are not messing around. And I've been saying this since COVID. People need to future-proof themselves, learn new skills. People have to learn new technologies. People have to make it that they're so damn valuable to businesses that they cannot be let go.
Before we begin this episode, can I ask you a quick small favor? I know a bunch of you who watch this podcast are not subscribed to this channel. Whichever platform that you're watching this on, please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. Let me know how we can improve. I know that a lot of you are from different parts of the world. I know you're coming from different industries. But the overarching theme, the mission of this podcast is to help you guys to actually build your thing. I bring on a lot of creators, small business owners from various industries to help you guys build your thing. And I show up in my own capacity to help you guys with your investing, marketing, business, whatever questions that you have. I do it all. So subscribing is the easiest way that you can show support, and it just keeps us going, honestly. And it just makes me feel good sometimes. So please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys have fun. Enjoy the show. In this episode, we have Scott D Clary from Success Story Podcast. Wears multiple hats. He's an entrepreneur, an investor, an author, and a very, very successful podcaster. Scott, thank you for taking the time and joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
All right, Scott. I want to ask you a lot of questions, but
go for it.
I'll ask you a lot of questions on business and your personal story. But before I have any sort of preconceived notions, since you're a public person, I don't want to have any sort of preconceived notions. I want to know you as a person first. Can you walk us through how you started building a business? First of all, what was your background, and how did you evolve into being such a successful podcaster?
Sure. So my background obviously it was not entrepreneurial. I came from a very risk-averse family. My dad worked for the government in Canada. I'm Canadian. My mom worked for universities in Canada as well. And I think that what prompted me, and I've thought about this a lot, and I think that I'm still realizing how important some of the ideas are that I had when I was growing up, because I think those ideas, a lot of people that are my age and younger are thinking about, how do I future-proof myself? How do I build a life that feels safe, that feels comfortable, that feels like I can afford the things that I want to afford? I can purchase the house that I want to purchase. I can raise my family, have kids, give them all the opportunities. That's what everybody's really looking for. And I think that for me, taking a little bit of risk seemed like, ironically, the safer way to get there, and the quicker path to get there, because I saw that, and I think a lot of people are feeling this right now that are again, I'm 34, and people that are younger than me are probably feeling it for sure. They're putting their energy into school, they're putting their energy into their career, and cost of living is expensive, especially in major cities. So they're pushing off having a family, and they're pushing off having kids till later on, and they're not buying a home right out of university or college.
Yeah.
And that's the reality for a lot of people, because life is expensive and life is tough. And I think that very early on, I realized that if I had done the exact same career path as what my parents took, I wouldn't have the same life. So I wouldn't have the same. I mean, my dad bought a detached home in his early 20s, cash. That doesn't exist. That was in Toronto, and right now in Toronto, people are starting their families in condos, and they're not even buying their condos; they're renting it. So the spending power of your dollar and the salary that you're getting as a young professional, it doesn't always line up with the same kind of life that our parents had, and I think that stresses a lot of us out. So that, in a very roundabout way, pushed me to take more risk, pushed me to learn about business, about entrepreneurship. I went into technology. I worked for a large telecom company when I first started my career. Then I moved to another telecom company that I saw that was acquired, and I saw what acquisition and equity really looked like. That was sort of my first exposure to it. I was very excited about the concept of um, being an entrepreneur because I saw that, if you build one thing and then you do it for a long
Mm.
enough period of time, you can get a massive exit or a massive multiple on
Yeah.
the other side of that, which is incredible, right? So I've tried to build over the course of my life, before and after the podcast have been
Yeah.
started, many businesses, some successful, some not. One of the companies that I've worked with for the longest period of time was a company. It was originally called Excitem, and now it's called, well, before it was acquired, it was called Swift. We did a small little change in the name, but it was a broadcast software company that I joined as co-founder and CRO. That was acquired by a company, and that was when I first started my podcast, when we were going through that acquisition process. And I started the show to future-proof myself. Again, it's all about how am I setting myself up now for the life I want to live in 10 years. That's always been the way that I think.
Yeah.
I'm always looking towards the future. And when I started the podcast, I understood that an acquisition was going to take place at some point in my life. I was still very young, and I still am. I was going to have to find another way to make money, get another job, start a new business, whatever that thing was in the future. I didn't know what it was, but I was a marketer and a student of the Gary V's of the world, and I understood that building an audience is a great way to future-proof yourself. What I mean by that is whether or not I took a job as another C-suite executive at some company, if I wanted to do coaching or consulting and wanted to be more of a traditional consultant, that's fine. If I wanted to start a new business, if I wanted to really do anything, it's easier when you have an audience. It's just
Yeah.
always easier when you have an audience.
Yes.
And I had the foresight to say, okay, so how do I want to build that audience? And I want to build that audience via a tool that I find enjoyable, because I'm also a big believer that if you can stay in the game long enough, you'll end up winning. So how do you stay in the game long enough? You do things that you enjoy. And that's where
Mm.
the podcast started. That's
Yeah.
where me interviewing people, that's where me sitting down with some incredible founders and entrepreneurs started. And I just realized that if I kept this up for a long enough period of time, and there's a lot of other influences in my life and a lot of other things that I believe in terms of building a business and creating community and creating audience that we can eventually talk about. But at its core, that's what it was. It was, how do I make it so that whatever I do in the future, it's going to be a little bit easier because I come with an audience. That was really the goal.
Yeah.
And then the podcast turned into its own business over a period of time where it generates its own revenue, which is not even the goal when I first started. But it was really just, I want my life to be easier. I want to architect. Now it's a term that I use a lot, which is architecting your life, creating the business, creating not just the business, where you live, who you spend time with, what your work-life balance looks like, the work that you actually do. I didn't even realize it at the time, but it was the first step towards quote unquote architecting a life that I wanted to live. Not just architecting it, and how do I say that better? I was purposefully architecting the life that I wanted through action versus just almost ad hoc meandering through the next job opportunity, hoping something works out, looking for a promotion, looking for a new opportunity every, 3 to 5 years, almost like, as opposed to letting life just happen to me, I was
Mm.
going to happen to life, if that makes
Right.
sense. And I
Yes.
think that is,
You're
it
playing the
sounds so
offense.
obvious. Yeah, very much so. But I think that most people let life happen to them. And that I was not really aware of how powerful this was, or the life that you can build if you're purposeful about it, when I first started my show. But now, fast forward, we're just over 6 years on the show, interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guests, and it's created this life. And the podcast is a business vehicle. It's created this incredible life, and I still work hard. That's have no illusion. I'm still working an incredible amount because I love what I do, but it's created a life that I think I've purposefully architected, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out. But yeah, that's sort of my origin story in a nutshell. It was just always moving towards the life that I wanted, and being cognizant of if I let life happen to me, I was with almost 110% certainty not going to live the life that I wanted to live. And at the very beginning of my career, I really just wanted to have the same life as, and I believe this to be true if you come from like a not negative childhood experience. I think most people want to just have the same upbringing that they had as a kid. So I wanted, quote unquote, the American dream, whatever you want to call it. I'm Canadian, but same difference, right? I wanted the house. I wanted the detached house. I wanted the pool in the backyard. I wasn't looking for a mansion. I just wanted what my mom and dad gave me and my brother growing up. That's what I wanted for my family. And in pursuit of that, then you start, if you aggressively pursue after that, then you start to uncover some pretty radical life-changing opportunities if you accept them. But if you allow yourself to see them and accept them. But that was really the goal when I first started anything in my career. That's why I didn't go into that's why I didn't stay, sort of follow the path of what my dad did. I didn't work in government. To me, it wasn't the quickest path to the life that I wanted to live, and that's what I was going after when I first started everything.
It's a lot to process. Let's break that story down.
Sure, that's the whole that's the whole origin story in a very short period of
Yes.
time. But yeah,
You said you come from a very risk averse family. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. Like they can't find that courage to take that jump. Maybe they want to build a business, but they don't have that courage. Maybe somebody told them that they're not meant to be, or like business is not their cup of tea, or it's not in their DNA. How do you build that mindset, and then how do you take that leap of faith? There's a lot of judgment around us in that environment. Did you face that?
yeah, yeah, you're right. And even before we press record, um, you mentioned you want to like talk about a newsletter that I built too, which is we could talk about that and we could talk about marketing strategy. But the reason why I bring that up is because when somebody subscribes to my newsletter, everything I just told you, that's one of the automatic welcome emails that goes out. It's kind of like my life story, just summarized in an email saying, "Hey, I'm Scott. So what I've done. Uh, Thank you for subscribing. This is sort of been my lived experience. I hope this resonates with you. This is why I built my podcast. This is why I wrote my newsletter." And the amount of people that reply back saying, "Thank you so much for being so real with your life," because there's too much bullshit out there with people that are saying,
Yeah.
uh, I came from nothing and I built a company and I was homeless. And some people were homeless. Of course, I get it. Everyone has their own
Yes.
crazy life story. But you don't have to hit rock bottom to be successful. You don't have to hit rock bottom to be an entrepreneur. I think that sometimes when you do hit rock bottom, you become entrepreneurial out of necessity. And that's a hard feeling for somebody to encapsulate and to embody, because when you don't come from when you don't hit rock bottom, when you do have a comfortable life, that comfort zone that you come from and that comfort zone that is the biggest trap. That is a huge trap, and people don't even
Yeah.
realize it's a trap. So I think that breaking out of comfort zone and breaking out of good enough to pursue, you know, uh, what's the word I'd say, like 10x what you knew growing up, or pursue dreams that growing up, it's not like you were ever hurting, but no one in your family, no one in your peer group, no one in your circle ever spoke to you about ideas this big. And when you're in that environment, it is very, I'm like, I can retroactively try and figure out how I was able to pursue certain things that were different from what I knew growing up. But it's very hard. It's very hard
Yeah.
because there's expectations to be a doctor or a lawyer or
Yes.
to get a good job or to go to school, and nothing wrong with any of that. I'm just saying that the majority of people are not even living their own life. The majority of people
Yes.
are living a life that was architected in, not in a good way, just architected for them before they even knew what their life was going to look like. and the pressure from society, from their peers, from their family, from their parents, from their grandparents, from their cousins, from their aunts, their uncles, all that pressure. And the worst, most insidious part of this is that all those people that I just mentioned don't even know that they're creating the life for you. They just
Yes.
think they're doing what's best for you. That's what's so it's sad. It's very sad because everyone thinks they know what's best for you. Everyone thinks they just want you to be safe and comfortable and secure, especially if their life was very comfortable. And they pass that lesson on to you, and then you think that you're crazy for wanting more, or you're crazy for for building your first company, you're crazy for dropping out of school, you're crazy for working 100-hour weeks. Everyone thinks there's something wrong with you. Everyone thinks you're
Yeah.
obsessed. And then, as opposed to expanding, the natural human reaction is to shrink back to what people expect of you.
Yeah.
It's very easy to shrink back because it's comfortable, and that's where I keep saying, like, the comfort. It's just very trite. It's very cliche, but comfort zone is a trap, very much so.
Yeah.
And I don't mind if it's a comfort zone. I do mind if it's a comfort zone that you created, but it's even worse when it's a comfort zone that your family or your parents or your peers or Instagram created, that you don't even know that the life you're living is not yours. So I didn't
Yeah.
answer your question, but this is
I get
the
it.
reason why I wanted to tee it up was because this is a reality that many people face. Now, why was I more aggressive? That's in my career, in my work. I think that a couple ideas. I think that first of all,
How did you like
yeah,
get out of that
yeah, I know.
let's say state of mind of judgment around you?
So I think the first thing you have to understand is the reason why you don't move away from what you know is because of fear. And a very powerful idea is an idea that I learned from Tim Ferriss called fear setting. And what fear setting does, and what it requires of you, is to look into the future, imagine the worst possible scenario that could ever happen. So, for example, well, I'm not going to go to law school. I'm going to start a business. And what happens if I start a business? Well, if I start a business, it may not work out. And then I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to have to get a job. But what if I can't get a job? And what if my parents disown me for starting a business? And then if I can't get a job, my parents disown me, then I end up homeless. Like, that is literally the worst possible scenario. Okay, then you really have to ask yourself, how likely is that going to happen? How likely is everything in your life going to fall apart and you're going to have zero chance of recovering, you have zero chance of getting a job, and you're going to actually end up homeless? The chances for any smart, capable person is pretty much close to zero.
Yeah.
Very, very, very close to zero. And even if for a second you are homeless because you miss a rent payment, if you're a smart, capable person, there's a million jobs out there that would love to have somebody who's entrepreneurial. So the first thing is to fear set, is to realize that all of your fears are quite irrational. And when you realize your fears are quite irrational, then you really have nothing to lose, especially when you're young. I assume that the majority of this audience would be, I know that there's people that are older that struggle with these thoughts and ideas, but I'm assuming that the younger the audience, um, they also struggle with these ideas. And I would say that, listen, when you're older and you have responsibilities, I get it. That's a whole other conversation about how to de-risk taking chance. But when you're younger and you have zero responsibilities, no kids, no mortgage, no spouse, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? Why are you so stressed about taking a leap or a jump? Nobody's even relying on you or depending on you. When you have
Yeah.
people that depend on you, that's very different. When you're first starting out in your life and your career, when you're 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, very few people depend on you. So that's when you can take incredible risk. So fear setting plus understanding the season of the life that you're in, those are very powerful ideas. All we're trying to do, because keep in mind, we are humans and we are very logical creatures, and we always justify. We actually, that's a lie. We're actually very emotional creatures, but we pretend we're logical creatures. But what happens is, all the decisions we make in life, we always make them emotionally, and then we justify with logic after. And I think that we have to, if we're going to make emotional decisions, the more we can understand the impact of our decisions and the impact of our decisions on our life. And this is something that I did early on, because to tell you exactly how I thought through this situation, I thought through the situation by saying, if I get, if I don't go to law school, which I didn't, I did an undergrad in Ottawa, where I
Okay.
grew up, for pre-law. If I don't go to law school, and I try and sort of, make my at the beginning, it was, how do I make money in tech? And then I just went down the rabbit hole of smaller startup, and then eventually starting my own thing. And this is where I started, right? It was starting to make money in tech. That was the first, for me, sort of stressful career move. That was stressful to me, because when you come from a government family, like, tech is risky, even though it's
Yeah.
it's not really, but you get what I'm saying. And I said to myself, listen, if I don't figure this out by the time I'm 30, if I don't make good money, law schools will always be there. They'll
Yeah.
always be, another job will always be there. The government's not going anywhere. I can get a job there. So why am I so stressed about making these, in my mind at the time, big career decisions? Who cares? Who cares? If if everything goes south, if nothing works out, I can become a lawyer. That was my justification. And I think that when you have that much conviction in your own ability, which everyone should have, we can talk about why I believe that everybody can do literally anything. Uh, but when you have that much conviction in your own ability, um, that's when you start to take and feel less of an emotional response to these big audacious goals,
Let's
because
stick to
now
that.
you've actually, go ahead, sorry, yeah.
Let's stick to that. How, like, sorry to cut you off. I wanted to know
No.
why you think anyone can do what they want, and like they can build that courage.
I mentioned a few ideas around this, but why can everyone do whatever they want? Because I don't think anybody's special. I don't think anybody's special on this planet at all, in the most I mean, in the best way possible. Elon isn't special. Look at the president of the US, Trump. He's not special. They're not, like, they had circumstances that allowed them to do the things that they do. They had luck for sure, but at the end of the day, they did architect a little bit of their own luck. They did architect their luck through hard work and perseverance and taking bets on themselves repeatedly. So I would say that whether or not your goal is to be president of the US, as long as you're an actual US citizen, or you want to build a ridiculously large, innovative, bleeding edge, disruptive company like Elon Musk, I'm not saying that you're going to get to where they are in life. Maybe you don't have any business goals or political goals. Maybe you want to be a spiritual leader or a motivational leader like a Tony Robbins. It doesn't really matter who you benchmark as the top person in their field. Uh, Anybody can do anything if they commit enough of their time and their life to it. So if you wanted to be a Tony Robbins and you wanted to motivate people and change people's lives, or if you wanted to be an Elon Musk or a Richard Branson, if you apply yourself to a goal, you take enough risk, you bet on yourself, and you can reverse engineer the steps they took in their life and their career to be successful, you may not end up there, but you will end up in a very good position. I refuse to believe that there is anybody who is uh, so such an outlier in terms of who they are as a person, that alone contributed to their success. The patterns to success are identical across almost every top performer in every field, political, spiritual, business, or otherwise. It's a healthy amount of risk, combined with not giving up, combined with somebody who is a self-educated, constantly learning individual, combined with an incredible amount of self-belief. And when you combine all of those ideas together, I believe that quite literally anybody can do anything. I think that people tell themselves a story because what they see is they see the end result. They see the end result of what somebody's been pushing towards and working towards throughout their entire life. And then they see where they're at now. and they don't have roadmap to bridge the gap between where they're at and where that person is. And that is
Yeah.
overwhelming. That is why I have, Atomic Habits right behind me as well. Like the power of small daily actions, right? Compounded.
Yeah.
So all of these ideas, it's not just actions compounded. It's not just self-belief. It's not just being an autodidact or a self-taught person. It's all of these things combined over an extended period of time. And when you extend your time horizon to 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you will be a name
Yes.
in that field. You will be successful at that thing. If you do this podcast for 30 years, people will know you as a podcaster. Now, whether or not you choose to do that, that's your choice. But if you do it for 30 years, you will do it so many times, you'll put in so many reps. It is impossible for you to suck as long as you combine all of those ideas that I just mentioned. So that's why I believe that anyone can do anything. And when you believe that, when you believe those ideas that I just told you to be true, and you combine that with sticking in the game long enough, yes, that's when you win. And then also you realize that the worst case scenario, that what you think is going to happen is never going to, the worst case outcome is never actually going to happen. Then
Yeah.
that's when you have the courage to do the thing that you want to do.
Do you know what comes to my mind when you said that? Like you should have that self belief that, and you should put in the reps, even if it takes a very long time. I feel like, and I was in the same situation. When you're trying something new that hasn't been done before, maybe it has been done by other people. Let's say, let's take an example of a very successful podcaster like yourself, and somebody's trying to build a podcast, and like they're trying to invite guests, they're having these people on, but initially they don't have that self belief that I'd be able to bring on such guests on my podcast. And let's initially they'd be having somebody who they know from their work or some of their friends on their whatever field that they're in.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to reach a situation where like you can invite a high profile guest,
No, it
but
doesn't.
then
It
initially
doesn't.
from
But it doesn't though. I have to push back on that because it does not take a lot of time. It doesn't. I got Guy Kawasaki, I got Grant Cardone, and I got Anthony Scaramucci in like my first 15 guests. 10 guests, 15 guests. I have to go back and check. Grant Cardone,
that's
obviously, most of your audience knows Grant Cardone,
yes,
big real estate marketing sales guy. Guy Kawasaki was like Apple employee, one of the first ones. Now, Steve Jobs hired him early on. He has a massive audience, speaks like 100 times a year on stage. Anthony Scaramucci was a massive finance guy. He runs SALT conference. He was Trump's director of communications for 12 days in the White House in his first term.
yeah,
He's also a big name. I disagree that it takes a long time. I think that people
yes,
don't shoot their shot. People don't
yes,
shoot their shot enough. I love taking massive action. Like email these people. Like if you want to book a big guest in your first week, first of all, you have to think through a couple things. Okay, so maybe just DMing them on Instagram isn't going to be the best way to get them on. But why would a guest come on my show? Okay, let's think. Well, if they have a book coming out, maybe that's one reason why they come on my show. If I don't take up a lot of their time, maybe that's another reason why they come on my show. If they get marketing assets or exposure, that's another reason. So what I would do is I'd say, okay, how do I reach these people and promote what they're working on? Make sure that they get a lot of value and it doesn't take up too much of their time. So first, I got to think through how do I get in touch with them? So I got to get their email address. How do I find email addresses? Google. How do I find somebody's email address? You're going to get like 10 different tools to scrape emails. Okay. After you figure out their email address or their agent's email address or their CMO's email address, got it. Okay. Now I'm going to send an email. How do I write a subject line that gets a high open rate? There's like 10 YouTube videos on how to get an email, how to write an email subject line, how to get the high open rate. Okay, now in the body of an email, what's best practices for the body of an email so that I get a good response or a good click through or somebody replies to me? Again, YouTube will tell you exactly what you need to know to write good copy. Perfect. Now in the body of the email, I don't have to write it now because I have like generative chat tools like Claude and GPT and Perplexity. But in the body of the email, now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look for people that have what's called intent. It's a sales term, but there's intent to make a purchase. The purchase, I put in air quotes in this case, is coming on the podcast. But the intent would be meaning that there's a thing happening in their life
yeah,
that makes them want to do a show. So that would mean writing a book, launching their own podcast. That's why Guy Kawasaki came on, because he was launching his own podcast. So I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to filter by up and coming releases, business, finance, find the top 10 guests, find their email address, put them into an email sequence, run an email sequence. And then in the email body, I'm going to say, you have a book coming out. I want you to come on the podcast. It's going to be 30 minutes of your time via Zoom. And I'm going to clip out a whole bunch of social content and I'm going to send it to you for no charge at all. We do that for all of our guests. You're going to get 3 great social clips for Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Snapchat spotlights and reels and all that. And if you do that for 50 people, you're going to get 2 people to say yes. I don't even know what that ratio is. I just know you're going to get 2 people that are going to say yes, because nobody, I get 500 pitches a week. And out of the 500 pitches a week, nobody does what I just said.
Yeah.
0 people do what I just said. The barrier for good work is so effing low. It's unbelievable. So do that. You'll get big guests. And then once you get those big guests, then you leverage those names in the subject line of the email to get the next big guest. So
Yes.
I push back. Now, the reason why you would not do that is if you feel like you want to work on your interviewing skills, which is completely valid. And if you want to just work on chatting with people because you have social anxiety or you just have anxiety in general, that's fine. Interview people that don't give you anxiety. But know that you can get these people anytime to come on your podcast. It's just a numbers game. It's a volume game, but not enough people shoot their shot. That's life. People don't shoot their shot.
Yeah.
That's it.
Makes sense, total sense. But like where I
I
was
didn't mean
getting
I didn't
at
mean to
is,
push back so hard. I'm
no, no,
sorry,
no,
dude.
no.
I
Where
get
I
so
was getting
emotional
at,
about this. Yeah.
that's total fine. Like I get it. Like, but where I was getting at is, uh, when you're trying to reach out to guests, you don't have enough self belief. Like maybe it's because of any reason, and when you do, you're looking for cues that you're on the right path. And if you're not, you kind of feel like this is not working. This is not working, and it takes a long time to build something meaningful. And I read that you have a 10-year rule, like if you're not in it for 10 years, you're not going to pursue that. Most people don't even have 10 years. Like
Most people
most
don't
people
have
don't
10
have that
minutes.
framework of building something 10 years. So how do you get into that mindset? How do you get into that framework of giving something enough time to build, and how do you not get so anxious in every stage that you constantly look for validation that tells you that you're on the right path, because what you're trying to do is uncertain? Here's a quick one. If you guys have not subscribed to this channel yet and you enjoy the episodes that I share, please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. It helps us. It keeps me going. It allows us to bring on a lot of guests who are actually trying to help you guys build your thing. We bring on a lot of guests from different parts of the world. We take feedback. If you want me to cover any sort of stories, leave them in the comment. Let me know who you want to see on the show, and I'll try to bring them on. So please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. It's not going to charge you anything. It just keeps us going. Now, back to the podcast. At least for
Well,
you and your surrounding.
I do look for validation. Just because I'm in it for 10 years doesn't mean I cover my eyes and only look up at the 10-year mark. You have to look for validation. You have to have your KPIs in your business. You have to see that things are growing in the right direction. KPIs are key performance indicators. So whether or not that for a podcast is downloads that are growing, or for a business it could be, I mean, we don't have to get too much into the weeds on this, but I'm a big fan of leading indicators for business, meaning what are my success metrics that are driving revenue, but revenue is like a lagging indicator. So a leading indicator could be like, how many calls am I making, that when I do 10 calls, I have a 20% conversion rate, or two people out of every 10 say they want to buy my product or service. And if I have that metric and that KPI set up, then I know how many calls I have to make every single day or how many emails I have to send. And now I figured out that, if I send 1,000 emails in a month, I get 20 sales. That's a 2%, not a 20%, but say I get 20 sales of every 1,000 emails I send, because my conversion rate's a little bit lower on email. Okay, so then if I figure out that I can close X amount of revenue for every 1,000 emails sent, then all I have to do at this point is start to scale out my sales team. Now, if I can't figure out that number yet, then that means I have to tweak the messaging, or tweak the marketing message, or tweak the cost, or maybe there's a feature, or maybe the product's not working well, whatever it is. But I mean, I'm always looking for validators of success. I am a very data driven individual. If things are going in the wrong direction, I have to figure out why. For a podcast, okay, so we're doing hour-long podcasts. They have like a 75% retention. So if I do a 3 hour, well, maybe we can test one 3 hour podcast, but still the retention's 75%. Now, if I do a 30 minute, the retention's almost 100%. So which direction do I want to go in? And maybe you just like doing longer podcasts because you're trying to become like Joe Rogan's. So this is the direction you want to go in. But I'm a big data guy, and I always look at data. And I think that if you aren't looking at data, you're not going to be successful. So the 10-year rule is not about not looking at data and not looking at validators that what you're working on is moving in the right direction. You should be very granular about your data and your KPIs, and you should be monitoring them constantly. However, the 10-year rule is saying that you have to mentally and sometimes financially find a way to commit to something for 10 years. So if you know that it's going to quote unquote take 10 years, I don't care if it takes you 6 years, it's fine. Or if sometimes it takes you longer than that. But if you commit a percentage of your life to the thing, say 10 years, it's not a long amount of your life if you really consider how long we're on this planet. And also, you also realize that you only have to win once. That's the most beautiful thing about life. You really only have to win once. Now, once you win once, you'll be so obsessed with the game that you'll keep playing it again and again and again and again. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs that after they have an exit or that they've built something incredible, they keep wanting to build again and again. But that's a different conversation. You really only have to win once to have more money than most people on this planet and more money than you know what to do with. So if you stay in the game long enough, 10 years is what I'm asking, that means that you are mentally prepping yourself to commit to something for 10 years, but also you're financially prepping yourself. Why is that important? That means that you are not quitting your job to start a business if you only have 3 months of cash in the bank and you have a family and kids and a mortgage that you have to support. That's not smart. If you're committing to 10 years, then you start to think differently. Okay,
Yeah.
if I'm going to do 10 years, then what do I have to do? That means that I have to work a 9 to 5 while my side hustle or my side business is 5 to 9 or on the weekends. I need to fund my entrepreneur business, my entrepreneurial endeavor with a portion of the income that I'm bringing in from my 9 to 5 job. You de-risk entrepreneurship and you de-risk pursuing those ambitious dreams and goals that you have, because now you're realizing that the goal is not to speed run and try and win in the shortest amount of time possible. It's staying in the game long enough so that it is inevitable that you end up winning. That is the mental model, mental shift that I want people to go through. That's why the 10-year rule is so important. And on the way throughout those 10 years, you're always measuring, you're always validating the ideas that you implement constantly, but frame it and push that goal far out so that you stay in the game long enough.
Got it. You said you only need to win once, and I'm pretty sure like you've had many transitions in your life from like multiple exits and then podcasting, and I'm sure you have had your fair share of failure. I want to know what you learned from any of those losses, and like what's that one thing that stayed with you throughout that journey of the beginning and where you're at right now?
Well, most of what we're talking about, all these ideas that I have, these are not ideas that I was born with. So a lot of these ideas, and in my opinion, these are very important truths about life and entrepreneurship and building. These are ideas that have come from failures, right? You don't learn a lot when you win.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't learn a lot, and sometimes winning too easily and too quickly, if you get too lucky, that's actually to your detriment. So most of these ideas I've learned from failures. Um, what's one that sticks out? I mean, I've quote unquote failed a lot, but that's everyone who's built anything significant. Um, and I don't even consider the podcast to be like, the podcast is still the thing that I'm most proud of, but it's not like I'm like quote unquote done, right? That's there's still probably like again, I'm not a Joe Rogan, I'm not I'm not a Tim Ferriss. I'm not some of the guys that have built this show for forever. There's a lot of podcasts that are a lot bigger. So this is just my current thing that I enjoy that's moving in the right direction. And that's the way that I look at it. And it does better than, I'm sure 99% of podcasts, but I don't really care about the 99% of podcasts. You always care about the 0.01%. That's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to be ambitious, to say, like, whether or not you end up being the best, you should always say to yourself, there is potential for me to be the best in the world. That's the way that I think most people should operate. But at the same time, understand that what you've achieved so far is absolutely incredible. So don't always just focus on future success. Like, you do have to be gracious and grateful for what you've achieved so far. That didn't answer your question about failures. I'm trying to a very specific lesson about failures. I would say that one of the more
What's that?
important lessons that I've learned. I was going to say, uh, and this is no slight on anyone that I've worked with in the past, but when you choose to work with somebody, it is a very powerful thing to collaborate with someone else when you're building a business as a co-founder or as a peer, or if you find a mentor that helps you out. It's a very powerful thing. I think that is actually, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because I think it's the one way that uh, when you have a great co-founder or you have a great business partner, it really allows you to move quicker and to tap into someone else's skill sets and sort of fill gaps that you don't have. But at the same time, when you build something with someone else, um, treat that business relationship with the same seriousness and due diligence and vetting as if you would be finding a wife or a partner to marry. Like, that is the level of seriousness that I think you should adopt when you're going into a partnership, and you have co-founders. So I think that that's something that a lot of people screw up, because when two people come together and they both have ideas and they're both good people, we're not including in this conversation people that are malicious or have ill will or don't want you to succeed or trying to scam you or whatever. When two people come together and they both have great ideas and they're both, great people, and they want to build something together, um, there's like this great energy, and this great energy of building a company together. It almost blinds you for a second, because you both get so excited. You both get so excited that you found one other person on this planet that's as crazy as you, that wants to build this thing. And I think that it blinds you to what are the actual ways that we should allocate work, allocate equity, allocate responsibility. You get too excited about the project, at least this has happened in my life, and you don't look at, is this partnership good from a strengths perspective? And I think that when you go into a partnership, it is just as serious as marriage, and you have to remove the excitement and remove the emotion, and really just, in a very uncomfortable way, say, okay, how much equity are we each getting? What's our responsibilities? If you say you're responsible for this and you don't do it, what are the repercussions? If this isn't going well, how do we kill this business? Are we both putting money into this thing? Is there skin in the game? You have to have these really uncomfortable conversations, kind of like the uncomfortable conversations you should have when you're going on your first date, about kids and religion and money and schools and politics and all the things that are going to impact whether or not you want to spend your life with this person.
Yes.
I think that you just should spend more time really walking through what a good business partnership should look like, because even the two most well-intentioned, ethical, moral, hardworking people, if you don't create lines in the sand, and if you don't over communicate how this partnership is going to play out, it is, I think, in more cases than not, going to become stressful, and it's going to be something that you're going to have to navigate later, and it's going to be something that you're unfortunately not going to want to do, but you're going to have to do at a later stage because you didn't just figure your shit out when you first started working with this person. That's what I've learned, because I get too excited about working with somebody and we don't have the hard conversations up front. So we end up having to
Yeah.
have the hard conversations later. And so that's not really a failure, like a massive failure, but businesses have failed because of bad partnerships. I mean, businesses have failed because of other reasons too in my life, but bad partnerships, I think, is the one thing that I think that I see a lot of my friends, even very experienced friends. Like, this is why I'm repeating it, because people that have sold their companies, that have built companies on their own for and sold them for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I have not had a hundreds of millions of dollars exit, but I have several friends that have, and they still screw up the partnership co-founder thing because you get so excited about the idea, and then when you start building together, you realize that you didn't really figure out who's going to do what, and then it gets awkward, and then it gets uncomfortable, and then that's not a good place to build a company.
That's a really good lesson. Okay, we talked about what you can learn of building a business. I want to know, since you've had a couple of exits, uh, how can, when we think of business, and I think a lot of people in the business world today build a business just because they want to sell it to somebody else. Is that the right way to build a business? And if yes, what's the right approach to do it?
It's not always the right way to build a business. How you build a business and what you want to do with it over a period of time is highly subjective. So I think that most people, I think, yeah, most entrepreneurs, they want to build it to exit. That's fair. I think that most people want a massive check at some point in their life. I But not everyone. I mean, just to walk through the other options, right? You can build a business that's a lifestyle business, like a solopreneur business. Say you're making $1 million a year, or even $500,000 a year, but you have total time freedom. You can spend as much time with your family as you want. Your margins are like 95% profit margin. A good example of this is Justin Welsh. She's a solopreneur, and he has no interest in selling his IP, but he has courses. He I think he pulls over $1 million a year, and he has complete freedom over his life. That's one business, right? Now he's not. I don't know if he'll ever exit it, but pulling $1 million a year in most cities in the world and 95% profit margins, that's a pretty good life for most people, right?
Yeah.
Um, don't have to have employees. He works with VAs, no headache, no office, nothing. That's one way. Second way is to build a business that you again don't sell, but you want to scale it to, a couple million, 10 million, 20 million, 30, 50, up wherever, but you don't want to sell it because then you want your kids to take over it. You want to leave legacy and you want to give your kids
Yes.
something to walk into. That's another business. One of it's interesting. I won't name the business because I don't want to name the founder, but a business that I have been involved in the past. It's not my business at all, but it was when I was early in my career. He built a business that he wanted to pass on to his kids. They had no interest in taking over the business. He eventually had to sell it. It was kind of sad. So understand that that can happen too, and just know that sometimes your kids don't want to go on the same path as you, which is fine. But I think that hurts a lot of founders, especially when they build a business for legacy. Because some people have no interest in selling it. Like if a
Yeah.
business is, listen, the business is, pulling in 10, $20 million per year. Yes, you can start to think about selling it at that point, obviously. But sometimes you just want to give something to your kids and you want them to run it. And that's a total other quote unquote exit strategy. Yes, you can also sell it, and if you want to sell it, you can sell it to a couple different stakeholders, but usually it's private equity or strategic. Strategic would be like a private company, and a strategic buyer is usually would give you a better multiple on your business than
Yeah.
private equity. Not a hard and fast rule. It's not 100%, but a strategic buyer, like who purchased us, was Grass Valley, was a strategic buyer. They were a broadcast hardware company that wanted to
Mm.
buy a broadcast software company. So they understood the value probably more than a private equity, that you're
Right.
just one in a portfolio of a lot, right? And
Yes.
then Outside of that, and we didn't talk about raising money. That's a different conversation. But in terms of exit, then outside of that, I mean, uh, you can go public if you want. That's another exit strategy as well, which is a whole other game. But
Lot
I
of
mean,
compliance
what?
though.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like like putting
Yeah.
it lightly. Yeah, it's like a lot of compliance, a lot of money on lawyers and accountants, and yes, a lot of compliance, a ton of compliance, always nonstop compliance. But how you decide what to do, that's that depends on what you want to do. I mean, if I was going to say for an entrepreneur that wants to exit, I I think that you should understand what you'd like to do early on so that you can structure the cap table in a certain way. Maybe you don't want to dilute yourself too much. Maybe you don't want to raise too much money. Um, it's so subjective. It's like really up to like what the person wants. If they want to exit at some point, start shopping before you're ready. Like start shopping. Like you always want to start shopping around before uh before you actually need to sell. Like you never want to be in
Mm,
a spot with your business where you're desperate to sell, because if you're desperate to sell, you'll never get the
the
right
valuation.
valuation.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that go into when is it right to sell, and it's usually a little bit earlier than you're comfortable with because of macro factors. It could be, uh, we sold at the end of COVID. There was a very there was a reason why we sold at the end of COVID, right? Um, I it could be, you know, administration, tariffs, anything that could impact in a positive way or negative way the
Mm,
sale of your business. It could be that somebody's just interested in it,
yeah.
and uh, they are a strategic buyer, and this is something that would fit right into their portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
and they make you an offer, and you realize that maybe you are tired, maybe you are
Mm-hmm.
done, maybe you didn't even start the business thinking that you're going to sell it, but the second an offer comes, then you're like, you know what, this would be nice.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a long time. It's such a huge question because everybody is so unique. Um, but I think that just think, just be aware of, and also I think that the most important thing, listen, I don't speak on this a lot because I'm not like an exit expert by any means. There are people like that have exited multiple businesses. There are people that do this and advise people for a living. So I don't want to pretend like you should take my word as gospel. I'm just saying that I all these are all the circumstances that I've seen through my own career and through other people that I
Right.
know. Um, I do think that I do
Excuse
think
me.
that you should understand. I just had a conversation with Michael Sonnenfeld, who's the founder of Tiger 21.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be a good person to chat with about this because Tiger 21 is a community of high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals. I think it starts at 20 to 30 million, and the average person has a net worth of about 80 million. Most of them exited entrepreneurs, and and I think you have to know your number. Like the lifestyle that you're living when you have a cash flowing business, that's a very good lifestyle. The second you exit,
Yeah.
even if you get a lump sum, well, you're going to usually be taxed on that. And then also keep in mind that that's your investment principal, and you're going to invest it, but the returns on your investment are not going to be as significant in most cases as how much cash you were taking in when you're running a business. So you have to understand as well, what's your number? If you exit and you get X amount of money, is that enough for you for X period of time? Or are you going to have to start all over again and build another business from scratch? Because say you exit for $10 million or even $20 million, and a significant portion of that gets taxed, and you're young. Are you actually just going to be living off the principal interest? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what your lifestyle is. I don't know if you spend,
Yeah.
you know, $300,000 a year or $300,000 a month. Because if if you're spending that much money, and you're using the business to fund your lifestyle, and it's traveling on the business's dime all the time, and all of a sudden you can't do that anymore, and you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that's your answer. Maybe you keep the business. What selling a business does is it takes risk off the table, right? Because that means that there's guaranteed money. And you just have to
Yeah.
ask yourself, is that guaranteed money enough for the life that you want to live? And how long is that going to support you? And also, what's your investment strategy going to be once you actually do exit? So these are just things you have to ask yourself so that, again, you're not making a decision based on ideas or feelings that aren't your own. You don't sell a business because you look up to like hustle culture influencers on Instagram that are driving Lambos
Yes.
and be like, I want an exit. That's not why you sell a business. It's highly subjective, and I think that the more thought you put into it, the happier and the more fulfilled you'll be with your decision. But please just put thought into it. That's the
That's the
message.
best answer. Yeah. Uh, Scott, there was a email that went viral recently. It was from Fiverr CEO, Misha Kaufman. If you read, and like,
I posted
I'm
about
going
it,
to,
and I I did read it.
yeah. And he said, like, and I quote, "So here's an unpleasant truth: AI is coming for your job, like it's coming for my job too. It does not matter if you're a programmer, designer, product manager, data scientist, lawyer, customer support, sales rep, or a finance person. AI is coming for you." So how do you read this email, and what should people do when like something like this comes across their like feed?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and it's not just him, right? Several CEOs like Toby Luke from Shopify also sent a very similar email.
Yeah.
Like CEOs are not messing around. CEOs are not messing around. So they're going to be cutting a lot of jobs. They're going to be free. They're doing hiring freezes until they figure out how they can include AI efficiencies in their company. It's scary for sure, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, especially since COVID. And I've been saying this since COVID. People need to future proof themselves. So if you're just doing your job and you haven't learned a damn new thing in 20 years, like it was only a matter of time before you're gonna get replaced with something, technology, or someone who's just better at you and has learned more. This is like there's been so many signals that we have to upskill and to constantly learn new shit. COVID, people that were working in companies for 30 years, they were let go, and they feel like their skills are out of date and they can't get a new job because now they're unemployable. They haven't done anything to make themselves more hireable in the past. That is on them. Like people have to learn new skills. People have to learn new technologies. People have to make it so that they're so damn valuable to businesses that they cannot be let go. I think a good place to start would be to learn how to use AI to make yourself 10x more effective. I think that's a great place to start. If you don't want to be let go, figure out how to 10x your output compared to your peers. They're not going to let those people go. Keep in mind, they didn't say that they are replacing people with AI. They need to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to use AI to be more
Yeah.
efficient. So the people that know how to do that are the people that stay. The people that are working the same way they were working 10, 20 years ago, those are the people that will be gone. So, I mean, the CEOs are telling you, if you don't
Yes.
figure it out, if you don't figure it out, you're fired.
Yeah.
That's what CEOs are telling you. Now, what's crazy to me is that people are going to see that and not change and then be upset when they're
Yeah.
fired. I mean, help yourself. No one else is here no one's coming to save you. Just help yourself. That's how you win.
Hmm.
You have to always bet on yourself, and not enough people bet on themselves. And part of betting on yourself means that you are doing the things without somebody telling you to make sure that you win at life. So I don't care if that's spending, your weekends taking some local college course on how to use ChatGPT. Whatever it has to be, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be work. Welcome to life. I'd rather put in a little bit of work and still be able to make money than to be laid off and be unemployable. That's how I look at life. If somebody disagrees with me, too bad. Too bad. That's their life. I don't think it's going to work out too well for you. But the CEOs are telling you exactly what you have to know and exactly what you have to need to do. So listen to them. They couldn't be more explicit. That's my
Do
two
you think
cents.
any few like jobs or skills that you're looking at that you think will not be impacted a lot?
Yeah. I think every job will be impacted to some degree. I think that the jobs that will be least impacted, ironically, are people that where there's a human touch involved. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, influencers, I think, are going to be okay for a
Mm-hmm.
period, for a significant period of time. I think influencers. I think if you want to work with a law firm, the person who's doing the entry level articling work, they're going to be replaced. But the senior partner, who even though you can use AI to figure out the answer to your problem, the senior partner with years of experience who can guide you through a very stressful divorce or a very stressful business litigation, somebody who has the reps, that person brings more than just information to the table. They bring wisdom and they bring
Hmm.
comfort and they bring guidance. That is human experience. That's not going away. And also, I think that AI is going to make most online activities like we already are putting out more content generated by AI, video,
Yeah.
images generated by AI. What does that mean? I think that an in-person experience is going to be incredibly important. So to build trust and to build a relationship with somebody, I think sitting
Hmm.
down for coffee is going to be very important. I think that going to events and speaking on stage is going to be very important. Anything that reinforces the human component. Um, Even right now, I think that if I was going to measure, I podcast, I write a newsletter, I put out a whole bunch of content. What creates, quote unquote, the biggest fans for the stuff that I do? It's when I see them in person.
Hmm.
That for sure. It's just, and that's not even because of AI. That's just because they like seeing somebody in person. It's like there's a level. Humans are meant to be social creatures. Like they're not meant to be isolated
Yes.
in a box working behind a desk all day. So those are the things that I think will be a little bit safe from AI for now. Uh, but at the end of the day, it's like how do I if I'm trying to do business, if I'm trying to build a relationship with somebody, if I'm trying to build influence, it's like how do I do it in a more human way? And there's a million different answers to that. If you look at my content, that's why I do video. That's why some podcasts don't do video. I know it's such a simplification of a much broader issue that you're referring to, but that doing video is one step closer to a human to human interaction than tweeting or
Hmm.
writing a newsletter or doing even an audio podcast. So it's not much, but again, atomic habits, small actions
Yes.
compounded
Smart.
over a period of time do make a difference. So I can't be in every room in the world every single day. It'd be great if I could, but that's not reality. So even in your marketing, how do you adopt a human first approach? When I used to sell, way before AI, um, I would do all the regular stuff like the LinkedIn DMs, and I would do like I would do the email automations and whatnot. You know what had the highest open and conversion rate?
Mm-hmm.
When I would, at the end of the day, I would hold up my phone and I would get a list of about, say, 20 people, and I would, in front of my phone, record 20 videos every single day, Monday to Friday, and send those to decision makers. It was me. I was just selfie video, just recording it for 45 seconds saying, "Hey, Joe, just wanted to connect. We've never spoken before. This is what I do for a living. I think that we should grab a coffee sometime." Whatever the message was, And I would do that
Yes.
20 to 30 times at the end of every day, send those messages. And I would say I got about a 50% response rate on those messages. Some people
That's
said, I'm not
amazing.
interested, but that was it. It was a human component, and it wasn't automated. It was, and I made sure to make, I made sure to make that video message that I sent, I referenced something about that person that would have been at the time impossible to automate. Like, I just saw you on
Yes.
Twitter tweet this, whatever, or I just saw you went to, South by Southwest last week. Anything that made it human, and that combined with video, combined with like the raw authenticity, that got a really high response rate. I used to do that on LinkedIn all the time. I think you can
Right.
still do it on LinkedIn,
That's a great sales
from your
tip.
phone, because I'm pretty sure like on the desktop, they don't give you the option to send the video. So I had to do it on my phone. You just go into someone's, you go to a
Yeah.
connection, go to message, click video, record, send. Great, like it's a great, great, great strategy for selling, especially for more expensive products. Um, maybe not if you're, selling like a shirt or a a protein bar, but if you're selling like a
A
coaching,
B2B
consulting, or
service
at
or
the,
something.
yeah, well, I was selling software, enterprise software. So I was doing that. I told my whole sales team
Mm.
to do that. We killed it. But long-winded answer to your question, what's safe? Human to human is always going to be safe.
Yeah.
So whatever technological innovation or environment we're living in, find a way to be more human.
All right, that's really interesting. Okay, in one of your recent podcast episodes, you talked about three states of wealth, right? It's work, skills, systems. Now, and you said that your first $1,000 is from work, 100,000 from skill, and first million from systems. I'm going to give you an example, and then like I want your input on how you would scale that to a million,
Okay.
right? So let's say you're selling like software services. You've already done that. Like, how do you
You already,
implement this
if you already
framework?
have a software company, you've already, you've
No, no, no.
already
I'm talking
skipped
about
the
software
first.
service as a developer.
Okay.
As a developer, like you're outsourcing your skills,
Okay.
right? So how do you implement this framework to get to a million? Somebody who's like starting as a freelancer right now.
It's a big question. So there's a lot of different ways to get to a million. If you are trading your time for money, which sort of falls into that
Yes.
first bucket, um, then you just trade more time for money, and you can sort of you can sort of get to your first $1,000 quite easily.
Yeah.
That's where entrepreneurship starts, by the way. I mean,
Yes.
entrepreneurship starts, you have a high value skill. You can go on Upwork or Fiverr or TopTal, and you can start selling that skill. Now, if you do that for a long enough period of time, you can demand more from the market, and you can be billing. I mean, what does a CTO of a publicly traded company make, right? Like, you can be making $500 an hour, you're making $1,000 an hour. You can make a lot of money as a software
Mm-hmm.
developer. I think you probably could have made more money like 5 years ago, because now everyone's doing no code and AI, but
Yes.
like, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, how do you take that skill set that you have, and you turn it into $1 million business? There's several ways. I mean, you can start to, so you tap into a form of leverage
Mm.
to scale to $1 million. So the types of leverage that there are, this is a Naval Ravikant tweet. There's
Okay.
financial leverage, there is human leverage, there is technical leverage, and there is media
Mm.
leverage. So if you want to scale, for example, if you coded your own software and
Mm-hmm.
sold it, that could be technical leverage. If you, for example, raised capital and then hired a whole bunch of developers to work underneath you, and you turn into a software dev shop,
Mm-hmm.
that's a combination of financial and human leverage. That can also scale to $1 million. You could create a course for early developers on how to code, and then you create a massive personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, you're famous, you're posting everywhere, you have a massive YouTube channel. So now you're using media leverage. So there's many ways that you can do this. You have to figure out which way you'd like to scale it, because all of them are a path to a million, and all of them are using the skill set that you have. But I think it just depends on which way you'd like to scale them, because any of those three options would be perfectly fine. And there's been many examples of each one of those three working out. But you use a form of leverage, and you combine that with a product that you can build once and sell a million times, whether that's through courses, software, or through people delivering. And maybe it's a combination of all of them. However, I'd highly recommend you focus on one of those three options immediately. And there's other ways to make money, but I would say that those are probably the three most common ways to build a business around a skill set. And each one of those businesses can be $1 million businesses. Each one of those businesses could be $10 million businesses and beyond if you scale it. So understand leverage and understand how to apply your skill set to one of the four kinds of leverage. And then you will end up with one of these business models that can scale based on your skill set. Does that answer well enough?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. Like Scott, I really love your newsletter, by the way. I think I've mentioned that already. But I want to understand, like, while I was reading it, the only question that I could ask myself was, okay, how does he come up with these ideas? How does he come up with these ideas? And it breaks my conventional thinking pattern of how I look at things, right? So, and in a good way, by the way, and it really helps me how I can like change my style of work, how I change my style of thinking in terms of certain aspect of business, or let's say communicating, or like podcasting, whatever it is. I want you to help me understand like how you came up with those ideas, and how can people use those frameworks to build something of their own. I'll give you a few like ideas that you had shared. The first one that I think by far like tops my list is like ask better questions. Small shifts in your questions create massive shifts in your life. Like you said, change, am I qualified, to what unique perspective can I bring? Like self-doubt becomes constructive inquiry.
So I'm sure, I'm trying to think because I wrote that a while back. I'm pretty sure that most. Okay, so let me back up for a second. That one in particular, I'm pretty sure it's because I podcast for a living, and I've noticed how radically my life has shifted and improved since I started my podcast, and how small shifts in the questions that I ask, even the guests, it the amount of information that you tap into on the other side of a properly worded question, not just in a podcast scenario, obviously, but just in life, it's absolutely incredible how much wisdom it opens you up to. And I think that understanding how to ask great questions of anyone, it could be a mentor, it could be a peer, it could be a co-founder, it could be a podcast guest, uh, that has, I mean, I would say that compared to when I started my show, I am unrecognizable because of the wisdom that I've had the privilege of accessing through questions. So that one in particular was entirely based on my lived experience. Now, how do I figure out if that's, and I consume content constantly, and I learn constantly, and then I test ideas and I see if they impact me, and if I like that idea, then that's what I write about. Now, how do I figure out if a particular idea is going to hit home with a newsletter audience, or, by the way, a podcast audience? The way that I test ideas is I usually tweet them. It's not like a really, intricate strategy, but if there's an idea that I believe in, then let me see how many other people believe this. Let me see if it's compelling enough. And I tweet a lot. I tweet a lot. And I see, say, out of the 5 ideas that I had that week, I'm a decent writer too. So I can structure an idea in, a tweet format. I can structure it into a script that I can talk about on video. I can structure it into a newsletter. I mean, I think writing is something that everybody should do. And I think that being able to structure ideas in different ways and to communicate clearly is one of the most valuable skills you're ever going to have. And it also helps you think clearer as well. So I compel everyone to please write more and don't just outsource your writing to ChatGPT and all that stuff. That's a whole other conversation about why I'm very scared about the next generation who's
Yes.
outsourcing their thinking and their writing and their clarity of thought and their cognitive abilities to ChatGPT. I notice that when I do it too much, I feel myself like dumbing down and not being as sharp. So right, but the point is, I can write, so I write, and when I tweet out 5 to 10 ideas, one of those ideas is going to resonate with the audience or the market, and it's going to get more engagement. That's an idea that I know that the way it's structured, that's an idea that hits. Now, sometimes those ideas that hit with the audience, they're not even the ideas that I think are the coolest, but content is not about me. Content is about the audience. So if there's an idea that really resonates with the audience on Twitter, Twitter is a very forgiving platform because if I tweet 10 times, nobody gives a shit. But I'm not going to write 10 newsletters per week. That's insane. But I can't tweet 10 times. I'll pick the best version of that idea from Twitter or Threads, by the way, same difference. And that's what I turn into a newsletter. So that week, that one particular idea was probably one of 10 ideas that I had that I was like, these are really great ideas. I've listened to them on podcasts. These are things that have come up in Zoom calls with my friends or my coworkers or my peers or my team. Or it's just ideas that I've thought about as I'm, in the shower, in the gym, or when I'm chatting with somebody on the show. And then I'll tweet out 10 of those, see which ones get the best engagement. That's a testing process. That's a validation process, validate everything. And then that goes into a newsletter. And it also goes into that newsletter will get turned into a script that I turn into a 10 to 15 minute solo podcast and YouTube video. I also am a big fan of repurposing content. A lot of different ideas in what I just said, but the point is,
Yes.
test,
It's like a flywheel
include
that
your
you
own lived
have.
experience. Yeah, yes, exactly.
Got it. And okay, there's another one. Distractions. If you
Yes.
don't know where you're going, distractions will look like opportunities. I think anyone watching this would be able to relate to this one. So how do
Well,
you,
that's some of the best content. That's some of the best.
yeah,
What do you mean? So how I came up with that is because I'm pretty sure at the time I was distracted and I thought it was an opportunity and it didn't work out. I mean, half of good content is just living life and then understanding that what you're going through, someone else went through.
yes,
That's content.
okay,
Everything you're doing is content. And if you just at the end of it, like you have to find time when you really think well. For me, there's scientific reasons why this is the case, but for me, when I'm exercising, I think well.
right.
There's a lot of reasons behind that. Some people like going for walks. Some people like meditating. I don't care what it is, but find a time when you think really well and start remembering ideas and interactions that you had throughout the day, and just start writing those ideas and interactions down. And that's what turns into your content. Because whatever you experienced with the person you were doing business with or the podcast episode you recorded, that is content. And when you capture those ideas enough, you find a way to test them, like on Twitter, which is a really easy way to test. That's a content funnel right there. And if you do this repeatedly, you will start to create some very prolific content. It's seemingly prolific, not really. It's really just what everyone else is living. I just wrote
Yes.
about it.
So let's talk about marketing. Uh, we've seen a lot of changes in the marketing industry, and like because of AI, a lot of new tools are out, but the platforms are the same, right? The strategies have changed. How do you see marketing evolving further from here, and how do you see marketing today in 2025? What's the right strategy to build something, let's say, on social media? Here's a quick one. If you guys have not subscribed to this channel yet and you enjoy the episodes that I share, please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. It helps us. It keeps me going. It allows us to bring on a lot of guests who are actually trying to help you guys build your thing. We bring on a lot of guests from different parts of the world. We take feedback. If you want me to cover any sort of stories, leave them in the comment. Let me know who you want to see on the show, and I'll try to bring them on. So please do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. It's not going to charge you anything, it just keeps us going. Now, back to the podcast.
Well, that's a big ass question.
Yeah.
What's marketing in 2025? Marketing in 2025 is the same as marketing 100 years ago. You are tapping into uh, somebody's hopes and dreams, and you're tapping into somebody's desire for status or desire for wealth. Like whatever we market, it doesn't really change that much. Just tapping into human psychology. Um, the goal of marketing should always be to take the person from present state and then sell the dream of future state, and then show them how whatever product or service you have can bridge that gap. That's marketing.
Okay.
That's never changed. It was probably 500 years ago with thousand marketing's marketing. Now, the way that we do that, there's new technology, of course, there's AI, there's social's not new, but we have social. So I think that how we do that has changed and how we understand media has changed, but the journey that the customer goes through is always going to be the same. We're always taking the customer on a journey. Even for the podcast, I'm taking the customer, audience member on a journey from present state, where they are an ambitious, hungry, usually entrepreneurial, very career driven individual. And I'm hopefully giving them the tools and the strategies to get from where they are to where they'd like to be with their business. But also, what's important to me is not just with their business financially, but what does their life look like on the other side of the information that I deliver? Okay, hopefully financial success, but also fulfillment across your family, your friends, your relationship with your wife, your husband, your kids. That is really the goal of my show. It's to teach people how to achieve quote unquote success
Mm.
across all aspects of their life. That is my marketing. Now, everyone has a different way to market, whatever that transformation is, but that's marketing. I think that the marketers that win will be the ones that constantly adopt new technologies to improve efficiencies. So this is what not just efficiencies, but just to stay relevant on the platforms that people care about. So not only just be on social, or not only just use AI, but use all of it to walk that person through that journey. Marketing is always about trust, which is also why social media is important. And ironically, that's also why overuse of AI is a detriment to marketing, because somebody feels and smells AI in your content, it's going to turn them off. So you have to be conscious that just layering on technology, as much as I just said to use technology, layering on technology without a smart, thoughtful way to implement it is actually going to hurt you more than help you. Same like using social, just posting garbage without really thinking about what you're posting is going to hurt you more than help you. But if you use these platforms thoughtfully, and you understand that you do have to understand and use new technology, but you don't have to overwhelm your customer with it. Just understand how to use it appropriately to achieve that desired end result of moving your customer or your audience on that journey from present state to future state. Then that's all you ever have to think about as a marketer. And whatever technologies exist now, whatever platforms exist now, they're going to be different in 10 years. Some will stay the same, some will be different, but the strategy and the idea behind marketing never changes.
Got it. And if when we build like a content strategy, do you look for any sort of pillars, or do you just document your journey?
So I do look for I mean, so it's again very subjective as to what the person is selling, because obviously I'm going to give different advice for a CPG founder versus an enterprise SaaS founder versus a content creator. I do have different pillars of content. I tie it back to the same core message. So my message is, I would say, personal professional improvement. At a very high level. That's a lot of the content I put out. Uh, a consumer goods founder could be like, hey, eat this protein bar, get healthier, and you're going to lose weight and look great. Or enterprise B2B SaaS could be like, hey, mitigate all your cybersecurity risks with whatever we're going to give you. You don't have to worry about ransomware attacks and privacy violations, getting sued by your customers when you get hacked and whatever. So you have to understand the pain point of the audience member, and then that's what informs your content buckets. And it's not just documenting the journey. It's a part documenting the journey, a part education, a part aspirational. And for me, at least, how I think through content, I look at what's already working, and then if you've,
Hmm.
I mean, you've done a lot of homework on me. I've spoken about this quite a bit. I just reverse engineer what other bigger creators with much larger budgets are doing, and then find a way to include my message into that format. So,
Got
for
it.
example, if you
Okay.
look on my Instagram, you'll see like quotes, graphics,
Hmm.
and reels of both my podcast guests and myself. So I am studying people that put out that kind of content that are in the same space as me, that have budgets that are 10x what I'm able to spend, and have
Hmm.
teams that are, 50 people instead of five. And I'm saying, okay, well, if these are the smartest people in the world, putting a lot of energy and money into it, let me start by studying them. Not That's not the where I want to end up, but I want to start there, and then I
Hmm.
reverse engineer what's working for them, and I see if I can include my own message into it. And then
Okay.
once I start to push that content out, then I test what works and what doesn't, and then I double down on what works and I stay away from what doesn't, and I'm in this constant, perpetual A/B testing mode
Right.
forever. That's really how marketing works. Like, I mean, I'm trying new shit today that I didn't try last week. So we'll see. Who knows? But I don't
Do you,
care. People are so stressed about their content. I
yes.
never care. I
Do you
never ever care.
worry? Do you worry if your content is off brand or you're trying something new? Do you
No,
worry about those things?
no, I never care. People are so overwhelmed with content. If you test anything, it'll be forgotten about in 2 minutes. Probably
Yeah.
less. Probably forgotten about in 60 seconds. So see, this is the thing, right? No one's going to leave you and stop listening to your content just because the style of font on a reel changed, or you have to have a pretty wild view, truly wild view to push a lot of your audience away. Like, maybe if you had a very politically charged perspective or whatever, but for most people, that's not what they're doing at all. So if you're just changing the style of the format, or you know instead of clipping out a podcast guest, I'm clipping out 30 seconds of me walking down the street talking about some sort of business concept. Um, People don't like it. They scroll past it. They forget about it. But on the flip side of that, there is unlimited upside, unlimited potential upside if that content does well. So I see downside risk as almost zero and upside risk as almost unlimited, and I will take that bet every single time. I'm not losing my whole career over one reel.
Yeah.
I'm not. No one's leaving me because of that. But there's a good chance that there is a chance. There is a
Hmm.
chance that something goes viral, and it radically reshapes my entire audience and my entire content strategy, and takes me to the next level of quote unquote influence. I hate that term, but you know what I mean. Um, so when it's all upside risk and zero downside risk, why not shoot that shot? You'll know in 2 seconds. Like, I'm not recording like a 4-hour podcast on politics when for the past 6 years all I've been doing is business and entrepreneur content. I'm not doing that much of a radical shift, but I don't think that's the reality for most people. Most people are like scared to change like the font color on their text overlay. Like, no one gives a shit. It is
Yeah.
forgotten about so quick. So take the risk. Do the thing. Everything is on the other side of massive action. This is sort of another theme that you'll hear a lot of people talk about, but it's true. Just do it. Who cares if it doesn't work? Who cares?
Yeah.
And if it works,
Great.
congratulations. You've
Thanks,
won.
Scott. Okay. Last couple of thoughts. I This question is particularly for those people who are like too scared to put out their first video. Like, I want you to like probably give them some boost and like some inspiring story from your experience, remembering your first video. How was that experience like? And like, were you worrying that if you have the right camera, if you have the right tools, what was that like?
My first video was shit. It was horrible. I was not scared though. I've never been scared. I've had imposter syndrome, but I've realized that my will and my want to live an exceptional life has dwarfed my imposter syndrome 11 out of 10 times. Now, I know that's not the case for every single person. I know that a lot of people, their imposter syndrome is it just I'm trying to think of the word. It's like it's just so consuming. It's paralyzing. It's the word that I hear people say quite often about getting started. Everyone's first post is horrible. Everyone's first piece of content is absolute garbage. It's just embarrassing. But that's okay, because that's required. Like, that's what I think people don't understand. It is required to put out just horrible. You look back on it and you're so embarrassed content. That is the ticket to entry. That is how we play this game. Every single content creator. If you don't believe me, go to your favorite content creator, go to YouTube, categorize the videos, organize them by oldest to newest. If they're a real content creator, some people delete their old videos, which, whatever. That's not a good example, but Mr. Beast, Tim Ferriss, because I watch a lot of his stuff. He's a podcaster, right? So that's my guy. I don't know. Pick a big YouTuber. You go oldest to newest. Their first videos are all garbage.
Yeah.
And if you ever want, you can go back and you can look at the journey that they've been on. You can see how the production value, the production quality has evolved over time. So just know that every single person that you look up to started with absolute garbage quality content. And that's the price of admission. So you got to put in the, I don't know, it's Malcolm Gladwell with the 10,000 hours. I don't know if it's 10,000 pieces of content, but it's definitely more than 100 before you really figure out what you're doing. So just start. I'm giving you the approval. I'm giving you the okay to just start and say, everybody who started at some point just went through exactly what you're going through. The only difference between them and you is they had the courage to actually act and to suck long enough until it was impossible for them to suck anymore. And even if you ask Mr. Beast, I'm sure that I don't know if he would ever say this, but I'm sure that he would look at some of the stuff that he's posted recently, and there's going to be things that he absolutely hates about it, because that's the life of a content creator. That's the life of anybody who's ambitious, not just with content entrepreneur. Even if outside looking in, everyone thinks you're winning, you always are so self-critical. You just have to act in spite of that, because it never stops. There's podcast episodes I recorded last week that I hate. Not all of them, but parts of them that I don't like. And if I let that voice control me, I would have never posted even the first podcast episode.
Yes. Mr. Beast said Logan Paul 100,000 times. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, before he went viral. Did you know
Exactly.
that?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
There's a video on YouTube that he's saying Logan Paul 100,000 times.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it
Mr.
took
Beast
him
has done
like
some crazy
12
shit.
hours or something. He
That's
didn't
so
leave
funny.
his
Yeah.
desk.
That's so funny. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
All right. Scott, it was amazing speaking with you. I have one last question for you. Like, whenever I speak with a guest, I want to know what are the regrets, because I think I push regret so hard that I don't want to regret something. So I want to learn from other people's experiences what the regrets are. If there's one thing you could go back in time and change, for, like, maybe change something for your work or your personal life, what would it be and why?
What do I regret? I don't regret a lot. I mean, I'm happy with how my life is going. I think the only thing that I would regret is not taking more risk and more chance sooner. I would have started everything that I've done sooner, and I did start it young, but I would start it even younger, because I believe that I really truly believe that most people on this planet, I would say all people on this planet, I don't care what shitty circumstance you've gone through, if you apply yourself to anything and you live the ideas that we spoke about today, and you say you want to build a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a content creator, a podcaster, you will be successful at it. And it's the worst lie that we have been told is that it's risky to go against the grain. It's risky to build. It's risky to be an entrepreneur. It's risky to disrupt. I don't think it's risky. I think it's riskier to live a life that we're not happy with and live a life that conforms to someone else's definition of what a good life looks like. I think that's riskier. So the only regret that I have would be not living the life that I'm living now earlier and taking more risk earlier and escaping the matrix earlier. That's my biggest regret. But outside of that, everything else has turned out pretty much okay.
Thank you, Scott. It was really amazing. Like, I hope people found value from this, and like it changes your life. Thanks, Scott, for that.
Thank you,
And
dude.
Scott, if
It was a lot
there's
of fun.
anything that I can do for you, please let me know. I would be
No,
more than
you're
happy
amazing.
to
This is a
do
fun
something for
interview.
you.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you, man.
Yeah.